Okay, hey, welcome everybody. So it's Thursday night. It's time to learn something. Let get this is a little bright. Okay, hope everyone is doing well. So I hope everyone is having a good week. I have been unbelievably busy. I've been taking another baby lock master class, and it's to get my or to renew my Serger expert certification. And so I'm just still finishing up homework. So, what are we going to do tonight? Tonight we're going to talk about, no, before we start that, let's talk about, how for years and years I've given you all kinds of things like don't use cheap thread, don't pull your threads through the machine from the spool, cut them at the spool and pull through the needle. Well, this week I have taught myself that I'm stubborn, and I'm going to go ahead and when I'm tired and frustrated, you shouldn't sew. So here I am in the middle of my class, and it's like I just got frustrated, and we were doing a cover stitch, and I just got frustrated because I broke a needle, because, well, for lots of reasons, but I pulled, well, for one thing, the needle wasn't all the way up, so therefore everything was going wrong. And that's the biggest, if you're getting bad stitching with your serger, 9 times out of 10, it's because your needles aren't in right. And it took me almost a half an hour to figure that out. But right after I did that, I was already irritated, so I was changing threads, and I went rip right out the back. It jammed inside my looper, which is usually a very expensive. Luckily, this was at the end of the day. This is usually an expensive repair because if a knot falls off in the middle of those tubular loopers, you've got to have Justin come and get it out. And I thought, oh crap. So I got the wire, and I'm shoving it through the ports like, doing a roto-rooter, and it's not coming out. And like, I'm texting Justin, getting ready to text Justin. I didn't actually have to do it. So I said, okay. So I took the plate off. I got the screwdriver out, took the plate off, took a bunch of things, took the blade off and everything, because that chain looper is hidden. You can't see the other end of it. So I finally got the plate off to where I took the rotor that went the other way, and I opened up the edges of the wire, because it's a twisted wire, so it was splayed out. And I just went like this, round, 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 like a rotor job. And then I see a little piece of white sticking out, and I grabbed my tweezer and I pulled it out, and thank God it fixed it. so I was able to finish my homework that night. And so there I got the alcohol, and I put the alcohol on a what do you call it, cosmetic pad, and ran it up the thread, and then pulled it through to get the rest of the lint out, and thank God that worked. Well, that was that. Today was today. That was yesterday. This was today. Today, you know how I tell you, don't use cheap thread, get rid of it. Yeah, no, because I needed more white thread, and rather than getting up to go into the other room, I opened up a box and found, I already threw it away, a spool of white thread that said Woolworth on it.
Okay? Oh my
God. Woolworth has stopped being in existence in the early 1970s. And I figured, I'm only 39. That had to have been 10 years ago. No big deal. So I used it. Oh, I have made a puckered mess out of this. I've got to pull it all out, and it was breaking needles, and it's like, and stubborn. Did I stop? No, I kept making myself more and more angry until I was like raging mad. And my poor husband came upstairs, and I bit his head off, and it's like, what did I do? Like, thread, Terry, thread. And then he left downstairs running. So yeah, well, I fixed that. I finally got up and went and got some other thread, little better. Okay, I need to go to the store and get a big cone of my Orifil white thread because I'm out of white, it's like, okay. So anyway, I had broken a bunch of needles with that. And again, I opened up the drawer. My needle case with all of my needles is literally right behind me. Could I turn around and do that? No. So I reached down, I got these needles that I bought years ago because I thought they were organ needles, which are very nice needles, and they're not. They're orange needles.
Gosh.
Couldn't thread my machine for nothing. Okay, and so finally, like, am I going to throw these away? Because I might need them. There might be no stores open for 100 years. The diesel is going to stop all the trucks, and I will use these needles rather than none. So yeah. But I will hide them in a better place next time. So yeah, I broke about 4 more needles just with the needle threader on my poor little Jane. That's the simplest needle threader on earth. I'm like, okay. So anyway, that leads us to this evening. I make no guarantees about tonight's class. So anyway, so what we're going to do tonight is we are going to talk about instead of binding a quilt, which can be, takes a little bit of skill and it's got to be just right, and it makes nice lumpy corners and it's got a lot of intensive hand stitching. Instead, I'm going to talk about facing a quilt. And facing a quilt is a nice, easy way to finish off a quilt. Advantages to it: it's more modern. It's not, you don't have this hard frame. It's hard to distort the quilt. It's going to lay nicer. They're really nice for wall hangings. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it. Actually, 3 different ways of facing your quilt. And you don't even have to do any hand stitching if you don't want to. Now, the one way of facing that I'm not going to show you, because I'm never going to do it, is that would have facing with mitered corners. Yeah, right. We're doing this to make it easier, not harder. Mitered corners are going to make it back into that hard range, and I don't want to do that. So, easy ways to finish off a quilt is that you can what they call envelope quilt it, which means like you just simply going to put here's a little baby quilt. You're going to put right sides together. Okay. And I didn't clip any threads either. And you're going to leave an opening and you're going to turn it. And yes, that is a way to do it. And it's nice and simple. The problem with that is that'll work well on a small quilt. Another thing too is that that's usually done before the quilting is done. That if you've already done quilting with a quilt back, you have to put another quilt. This would have to be another quilt back, and you would have to tie it or stitch in the ditch. And they never ever hang right because if it's the least bit off grain, if you've got a little bit of distortion or pulling when you're sewing the seam, it's going to never look flat and look nice. So I don't like, and also that means you've got to turn it. And how many of us are really good at not being able to tell where the opening is when you've turned something? I'm not very good at it. And then you have to hand stitch it with that ladder stitch so you can't see where it's open. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to do things that are easy. So this first way is that you're going to start it just like you were doing an envelope quilt, or so you're going to put your already finished quilt. Okay. Now this one is going to waste more fabric this way. So anyway, what you do is, let me get my clips. Is I'm going to clip it together. And what you want to do first is you want to first square up your quilt. Okay. This also works on a quilt that isn't so important that you have points that you can't chop off. Facing works best on that. Doesn't work so well when you've got to really be worried about chopping off a point on the edge or corners or something that you're going to chop something off. So anyway, I'm just going to put a couple of them here. Okay, and I want to put, you don't have to use the walking foot, but it does help if you've got, but I'm not going to put on, well, no, we're going to go ahead and just put the regular 1/4 inch foot because this one is small. And let's see if I get pulling, then I'm going to switch it. So I'm just going to, and I'm going to sew it from the quilt side up. If I sew this side up, this is thinner fabric than the bottom, and you're more likely going to get that pulling and twisting and torquing right here. Well, I don't want that to happen. See if that's better. Okay, can you guys see that okay? All righty. And I can start anywhere, but I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch all the way around. I'm just going to use white thread for now. See, if I'm sewing this way, see, I'm starting to get a little bit of pulling. So usually a couple things you can do to counteract this pulling that's going on over here. You can, as you're stitching, push. You can take any kind of stiletto or something. Here's a stiletto, and push under the foot. You could glue it, which is probably what I would do, is glue it. Okay, I'm just going to sew off for now. Okay, but if you sew from this side, this is already anchored because I've just stitched with the walking foot right along the edge, about 1/8 inch away, and that stabilizes the edges of the quilt. And so now I can stitch a lot faster, and I'm just stitching right off. And one more side. Okay, and you think, okay, now what do I do? Yes, I can't turn it right. I didn't leave an opening. That's no big deal because we're going to cut this. So anyway, I'm going to open this up. Like I said, this way will waste more fabric, but you don't have any of that twisting and torquing. And I'm just going to open, I'm just cutting about 1.5 inches away from the edges. And a little bit here. Okay. And then I'm going to I'm going to clip my corners. Make sure you don't get your stitching. And this is to reduce the bulk in these corners because we're going to have to turn this. You can back stitch this if you like, but I've never had any problems as long as you don't clip the corner. And one more. And this way, you know, all of your corners are going to turn nicely. So reduce it. Throw all these little bits away. And I'm going to turn then I'm going to use, where did my point turner go? This is one of my favorite point turners, stir sticks from Starbucks. Or these, I'm not sure, these might be from Panera, another place we get coffee. And I'm going to use this to turn it. And one more. Okay, and sometimes I will also use a pencil in order to poke them out even more. I have a point, well, no, I don't have a point turner. I haven't gone to the store. I need to go buy a new point turner. Okay. And then let me turn this iron on. Move all of this out of the way and get the pad out. All righty, and now I'm going to take this over, and I want to see a little bit of this right here, and helps to give it a good press with some steam. And I'm going to put some water in here. I don't need much. All righty. Steam or spray starch, anything will work fine. I'm going to first give it a press on all these edges to get them nice and flat. And the steam is working. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see that light color from the back. So I'll give it a good spray. Sometimes I'll just take spray starch, which I don't have any in here, but that's okay. I don't need it. Now, this is a raw edge right here. I don't like that raw edge. So I'm going to clip about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just clipping those corners here. Okay, and folding it under and pressing it. Now, some people pin. You could pin or head. If you're going to pin, use glass-headed pins. You could glue. Just take a little bit of glue, and I could glue stick it down. Okay, and heat set it. But I'm just going to pin it for now. I'm just going to pin and press. Okay, get a bunch of pins. And here I could, like I said, I don't even have to pin. Once I get it sort of like basted pinned down, I may not even pin at all. I mean, I may not even hand sew it. Because here you'd want to whip stitch this closed. And in a little while, I'll show you how to do the hand stitching. However, I find this much more acceptable. I'll take steam seam or pieces of steam seam, wonder under, any of these things. Okay. And so let me just press that. Just give it a crease. Now this adds the least bulk. The advantage is that you have almost no bulk on the front. And you could just simply put these underneath. Probably use a press cloth. That would make life a little more safe. Nah. Hey, let's just live dangerously. Okay. See, well, I didn't take the time, but this is holding it down. Probably. Yeah, that didn't. See, that's what I get for being a smarty pants. Because I didn't take the time to pin it or press it. Probably would not seam this down. But you could. And what I like about it is it makes a very nice flat piece of work. And it will hang up very nicely on the wall. And like I said, this is probably not how I would do the steam seam. Now the what do you call it? Wonder tape would work fine, because then you could put your wonder tape down, get it all pressed, then take the paper out, and it would work very well. So that's one way of doing it. Like I said, the advantage is that you have this would make a really nice table runner. A lot of times with table runners, when you've got binding, if you put a cup or something on the, or a bowl or whatever on the edge of it, it doesn't, and here it doesn't stay flat. You know, your cup is sort of tilted and it doesn't look very nice, and, you know, makes your table cattywampered more than it usually is. But I like this. This is great for table runners and placemats because it doesn't add any bulk to any height to the sides. it's nice and flat. Another way of doing it is, yeah, don't laugh at this. This is not really a quilt block. These were some practice pieces we did. This was pieced on the serger, just a regular serger. Now, the other way you can do this is that you can, let me just get, you would start with either top or bottom, and you're going to go right sides together, and you're going to, usually I start with the top and the bottom first. I'm taking anywhere between a 2-inch and a 4-inch piece of fabric, not on the bias, on the straighter grain. You're going to fold, you can either fold it in half or just fold it your seam allowance in, either way. If you're doing this for a placemat, I would do it a single layer. If it's going to be a wall hanging, I like it to have a little bit more body in here. So I will put the double layer and prepare it just like you do a quilt binding. And so I'm going to just cut these flush. And I need 2 of them, top and bottom. And these can be done out of scraps, so that's kind of nice. Okay, and now let me switch. And you're going to sew them. Let me just clip this here. So you can see this. It's on my screen, it looks backwards, but hopefully it's right on yours. Okay, just a little bit. I'm going to start this out of the way. I'm going to start over here. And again, I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch away and sew it down. And you can either sew off or pivot. And on this 1/4 inch foot, you can see a line right here, these little notches. I don't know if you can see them. Right here, little notches showing you are 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the fabric, and you can pivot. And then you sew across to the other side. And 1/4, that's good. And then sew this way. Okay, I'm just going to continue on here because I do 2 sides at a time. Go outside and come back. Again. And across here. But you can either do 2 top and bottom or the 2 sides. Okay, and then up here. Okay. Okay. Then you're going to cut, I'll do these here. You're going to cut these shorter, like you can measure it and then cut it about 3/4 of an inch shorter. Okay. I need 2 of them, 1 for each of the sides. And this can always be done out of scraps because it's going to be on the back. Really, who cares? Okay, again, then you're going to put this, I'm going to cut more. I don't want this in that seam allowance at the top, at the edges. I want this inside. I don't want it to add any bulk. So I lay it the edge to edge and now sew it this way. You don't have to finish. That's going to be on the inside. And then the same thing here on this side. Let me cut it a little shorter. A little too much. Because you don't want to add any bulk into this seam. This seam's already thick enough as it is. Okay, and we'll put the raw edges together. And okay. Usually when I've got something that I know it's going to be a wall hanging, a lot of times I will take a stitch right across the edge like that. That helps reinforce it so you can cut it very close. This would be on something that's bigger. You could do it even a couple times. This would be a little bigger. And one more. Small one like this, who cares? Okay, so then what I like to do here is I'm going to press these back, press this back, okay, and press this open as much as you can. I'm going to clip these corners really close to that stitching line that I did, because now it's got that other stitch just to help protect it. And there we go. Okay, and then did I press them all? Close enough. And then you're going to, now you can reach in this way, and then if you fold here and fold here, you've got most of your corner done. Okay, same thing here. There. And now this is finished on the inside. This one to me is easier than the one where you've got that whole piece of fabric. Plus, that would bother me to waste them fabric, because God knows, you know, it's like wasting thread. Okay. And again, now, if I am concerned that it's hard to tell, a bigger quilt, when I have a bigger quilt, then I would take this and go over to the machine and stay stitch it. See, I could stay stitch this from this side, right on these edges, flatten it out around 1/8 of an inch from this seam line on the facing side. I'll do part of it and not all of it. And see, and I don't bother about the corners. If you got the straight edge is the part that wants to peek its way through. And I'm just like you would a garment collar or facing on a garment, same thing. Okay, I'll just do those two sides. And so now see, this one is stay stitch, so now when I press it, it's going to be a little crisper. And this is where it helps to have steam, and well as maybe spray starch. And see, when you've got that stay stitching, it's much easier to turn it straight. Get this side, and then you would, now here's the side where I did not stay starch it. It's not going quite as easily, turning quite as easily. Just work with the iron and it'll be fine. And then on the front. This almost feels like a bag, you know, a handbag. And get it. Like I said, spray starch goes a long way here. It'll make it stay. And then this is a good one where you've got a lot more room to put in this stuff, which is my steamer seam. Get it nice. And I'm not even going to sew that. Yep, this is a good one. This is a keeper. So I do the short sides first. Hook it all up inside. Get that nice and flat. Make sure there's no webbing, fusible webbing hanging out to mess up my iron. Get in there. There. This one I might cut in half because it's a little wide. Oh, and you get to conserve on your steam seam that I've had since the 1970s. Okay. And see, when you press it down, it stays rather nicely. I haven't put it on this side yet, but you get the idea. And I'd probably take more time getting those corners just right. But this is a nice, fast, easy way. Okay. Now, if this requires of a hanging sleeve, you would at this point have to put a hanging sleeve on separately. The next way I'm going to show you includes a way to hang it, which I really, really like. So anyway, I'm going to use this as a wall hanging. Actually, it's going to go to the store as a wall hanging. I cut these 3 inches and I fold it in half just like regular quilt binding. I have 2, you could do 5, but you could do 4 of these, but I did 2 5-inch squares of fabric that I folded in half diagonally. So I'm going to put these on the front like this and clip them in place. On the top 2 tops. Like I said, you could put this on all 4 sides. Some people do, but I'm going to do this halfway the way we did this last example. And this one is being done so that I just have the hanging sleeve at the top. Or it's not even really a sleeve, it's going to be a hanging pocket. It really works good. so okay. So I'm going to do the top and the bottom first. Okay, so going to just put this so that it's inside. It has to be about 1 inch shorter. This way, I'm also going to pin this one. I want one all the way at the bottom as well. So I want to put one here. The bottom we're going to do just like the other one we just did. I'm going to pin. I'll just put a few, or clip. And this one's going to clip and cut it even with the edge. Okay. The top, I want it to be at least 1 inch shorter. It can be less than that. So raw edges together again, just like the bottom. I'm going to clip this in here. Okay. Alrighty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew here to here at the bottom, just like we did before. This one, I'm just going to sew straight across the top. This one, I'm just going to do straight across the top, 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to backpack. Yep, got a little crazy there. Okay. Okay. You can actually pin in all 4 sides at one time. I like to do the bottom first. Okay, so over. This one is the corner. Ah, my thread needle came unthreaded. So across. If you worry about it getting any tunneling or cupping on the sides, you can glue base this down like you do a regular quilt with the Elmer's washable school glue. And instead, this time, instead of, that did grow a little bit, instead of pivoting, I simply turn the corner. Okay. Again, I'm going to take a stitch. I don't know if that'll show it. If that shows it any better. Right across, just to the right of that intersection, to give it a little reinforcement, especially on the bottoms. Okay. This machine's going to get revenge because I was mean to it today. And 1, 2, and I'll get, well, I don't have an intersection yet here. Okay, so now I'm going to again cut these about an inch shorter. And just come in about it. I'll cut that like that. And there we go. I have 2 sides. That's not one of them. That is. And see how that grew? That did not make me happy, which meant that this binding is a little, but I'm not that worried about it because it's going to be fine. There's no quilt police here. Okay, so again, I'm starting at the end. Did I get? Yeah, I get. I'm going to start at the end, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch all the way to the other end. Remember, I'm catching this triangle down here. Get that corner. And now the other side, the last side here. Here, whoops, you don't want to go that far. I want it about at least an inch away. Okay. Again, starting at the corner, you're going to start right there. Why you don't have to be so concerned that it's not cupping is because these edges are loose. And then again, I'm going to hit that corner and this corner. Did I do that one? I think I did already. All righty. Okay, so now this one, you're going to start with the sides and I'm just going to finger press them for now. Okay. So I'm going to finger press it and I'm going to stay stitch that edge 1/8 of an inch away. So here I have my seam allowance underneath here and I'm stay stitching this out. This is going to give you by far the crispest of edges. Okay. You don't have to come all the way down because you're overlapping, so it doesn't matter there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to reach inside just as far. You don't want to stress it, but don't worry about the corners. The corners are going to take care of themselves with the iron and some steam. Again, this helps to press that open first. I don't know if you see any stitching right here. There's some white stitching. Okay, I'm not worried about that. The reason I'm not worried about it is the fact that when I do my stay stitching, I use wash away thread. So therefore, if it shows, I just hit it with some steam and it'll be gone. Okay. Then I'm going to press this one open. I'm just finger pressing it for now. Oop. I should have changed threads because that will show. Okay, now the last one, which is the top. Again, But I want you to see this way. Okay. And we're going to clip these corners really good, right above the stitching. And if you like, you can actually make it even thinner. Like I said, as long as you're not cutting this cross stitching right there, you're fine. And over here. You glob a thread here. You want more. And last corner. Okay. Now we're going to turn it. Let me switch cameras. Okay, again, I'm going to fold those corners. And then we're going to press them out. This is much less bulkier corners than it is with traditional quilt binding. They're a lot slimmer. And like I said, it gives a more modern quilt. Now, would this work on a Baltimore album quilt? I probably wouldn't do that on a Baltimore album hand applique one, but you know, I would on a, use a blunt end scissors and poke those corners out really good. We will press that. Here it is. I lost my iron. But what I want to show you, like I said, spray starch is going to make it stay. And again, you can use, and I didn't quilt the end, I probably should have, but it's okay. Now, this is the neat stuff, okay, right here at the top. And I'll show you in a little bit how if you're going to do hand. I like to do hand work. I always have. I like doing hand work, no problem. And I'm just going to pin it for now. I'm just going to pin them down. Because we'll talk about stitching this in a minute. And I'm going to pin inside. But look what you got here. You have pockets. Put in a dowel. See, now you've got these two corners here. So what's really nice is you can put, I don't have a, well, we'll pretend I have, this is a dowel. Put two pencils together, hold them together. Okay, these are, pretend they're big enough. See, but now you've got an instant hanger. And it'll hang really flat against the wall and really nice. Now, if this is a really large quilt that you want to put hanging tabs in there, you certainly can. But what you would do is when you're placing these triangles on the corners, because it's going to hang from these corners, and you need some support in the middle, you're going to add a fold, like about a 2-inch fold, or no, take a 4-inch piece, fold it in half, sort of put well, like this. Okay, you would take this. I'd probably hem this or just make a tube. Let's just pretend I got a tube here. Actually, I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to, this would be a good one to flat lock it down. Okay, I just sewed it together just to have a tube of some sort. Okay, and then you would fold it in half. This would be enough for 2 of them. That's maybe about 6 inches. You would take this, fold it in half, fold it in half, then when you're sewing the triangles together, I would just sew them here underneath of this piece. And because then that would come out from the seam, it would come out like, pretend we had done this, okay? So this would be inside. It would be underneath here. but this would be like down here. And you would now have a place that you would sew this underneath. And then this would be just left open for your rod pockets. And then you would have to tack down this end of it. But now you've got a place to put a pocket in there. If it's a large quilt, something this small, it doesn't matter. And this gives you a nice way to hang it. Aren't these cute? If you go to beyondtheframe.com and you can sign up for this month. These are free designs and the video and the webinar and all that stuff from the Beyond the Frame website. I really think these are cute. You could also put these triangles on all four corners. The only difference is at the bottom, you would hand sew the bottom. This is the world's ugliest pincushion. We had done this years ago with one of my guilds. We did these bears, I don't know, and they were just horrible. So I have my sewing needles here, applique pins that I don't mind putting glue on because they're hideous, a couple of T-pins, and a nail for the next time I need to put up a picture. This is an odd, bizarre pin. So anyway, let me thread a needle. Hardest part is threading the needle. There we go. Okay. All righty. So this one, again, you can sew it down, but you don't have to sew as close. You don't have to do this every few stitches. So what you do is I would just sort of start in. Now on this one, I would start inside, the one with the pocket, the hanging pocket, and just run and this literally just needs to be whip stitched. And I'm just literally, let me see. Let me find exact good spot. Okay. I'm just taking one stitch in. Now you don't want to go all the way to the front, so you want to check it every once in a while, but I do want to get it into the batting just a little bit. So usually this just needs to be a whip stitch. You could do a ladder stitch. You could do what they call the ladder stitch, sort of skims between, where you're just rocking that needle between the layers. Mostly, I'm just going to take a whip stitch because it just needs to hold it. It's not nearly as fussy or picky as putting binding on. But I think it'll turn out really cute. And that's it. Anybody have any questions about? And this is what I'm going to do tonight because I'm tired. So I'm going to go downstairs. YouTube has started showing the Hallmark and the Lifetime Christmas movies. So I like to get a good start on seeing what the new Christmas movies are. Anyone have any questions? This was so much fun. This is so much faster than regular binding. And I think I'm going to do a lot more of mine with a facing rather than the binding. So anyway, I will see you next Thursday night at 7, where we start talking about English paper piecing. But oh yeah, today was, I'm so stubborn. I swear, it's like I have this thread and God, I'm going to make it work because I'm a professional. I should be able to make this thread work. And it likes to say no. But yeah, I think, Nana, you were in later, you missed the story about my thread. I always tell you guys to throw thread away. It's no good, but I got stubborn. I had a spool of thread. It said F.W. Woolworth on it.
I have some.
You're gonna get upset because this little baby will sew things. I broke 2 needles. It was pulling. It wouldn't even go through my tension thing. I kept pulling and I thought, well, there's a burr. I cleaned all this. I cleaned it. I changed the needle. I oiled the machine because I wouldn't get up and go get another spool of thread. How stupid. Yeah, it's like, this is one of those weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm my own worst enemy sometimes. So anyway, I will see you guys